These days, it can be hard to trust the media. What's true, what's fake, and who is behind the message? I'm a freelance journalist and videographer who has spent years studying the media. Now I'm taking a look at what local, regional, and national news stories mean to us here in North Central Washington. I'm Dominick Bonny, and this is Common Sense. Hello and welcome to Common Sense. I'm Dominick Bonny, and today we're going to be taking a look at one specific Wenatchee School Board race ahead of the deadline to vote in the primaries on August 3rd. I'm going to cover as many school board and city council races in the Wenatchee Valley as possible before November, but I chose this race before the primary because of the three candidates involved. The race I'm talking about is the Wenatchee School Board Position 5 race, and the three candidates running for that seat are incumbent Julie Norton, who was appointed in January 2020 and is fighting to retain her position against two challengers, Miranda Skalitsky and Arlette Lopez Rodriguez, who is 18 and a recent graduate of Wenatchee High School. I met up with all three candidates this week and interviewed them each about why they want to run, what they see as some of the biggest challenges facing our district, and if wedge issues being drummed up by national media personalities and conservative political operatives, issues like critical race theory, have a place in our local school board elections. Especially since CRT isn't even a part of our district's curriculum, and there are no plans to teach it in Wenatchee schools or any Washington State school for that matter. I'm planning on devoting this and the next episode to those interviews. But before we jump in, I'd like to address a complaint from my last episode covering our school board elections. In that episode, I laid the groundwork by establishing what critical race theory is, where it came from, and how it's being used as a part of an AstroTurf strategy to win school board seats for conservative candidates across the country. Now, from time to time, folks accuse me of, quote, not presenting both sides, as if I am Walter Cronkite or another old-timey newsman beholden to some nebulous standard of both sidesism that never really existed in the first place, and is now being used as a cudgel to criticize anyone in the media with whom you disagree. It's disingenuous at best because these complaints usually come from folks who have no problem with people in the right-wing propaganda business failing to, as they say, present both sides. I have never heard complaints from folks on the right about Tucker Carlson's failure to appropriately cover both sides of the issues he features on his nightly program on Fox News. Secondly, how should I cover both sides of an issue that doesn't exist? If I interview folks about their reactions to curriculum that is not taught in our schools, where does it end? Do I have to get people's reactions to every made-up, manufactured issue somebody pulled out of their ear? If that's the case, the way things are going, by the next election, I'll be interviewing people about their opinions about implementing topics taught at the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Excuse me, sir, or ma'am, what is your opinion on the Wenatchee schools teaching defense against the dark arts, or herbology, or potions? The idea of asking people about their opinions about curriculum that is not currently taught in our schools is silly. If the status quo changes and CRT is implemented in K-12 studies in our schools, I will be the first one to let you know, and the first one in line to get parents' reactions to it. But until then, I think we've got plenty of important topics to cover here in the real world. So on with the show. Here's the format. I asked each of the three candidates basically the same questions, although some of my follow-up questions and the following conversations we had were spontaneous. I've edited it so that you get to hear each candidate's answer to each question before we move on to the next, and anything that I am forced to cut for time will be included in the unabridged interviews that you can find links to in the show notes at the bottom of this episode's transcript on NCWLIFE.com. For the sake of simplicity and in order to avoid any presumption of bias, although I doubt that will do any good, we'll go through the candidates chronologically from the first interview I collected this week to the last. So we'll start with Arlette Lopez Rodriguez and end with incumbent Julie Norton, with Miranda Skalitsky in between. Here we go. Are you running for school board position 5?
So I'm running for school board position 5 because in this past year, everyone lost something. And especially for me as a student, I felt that my voice wasn't being accurately represented. And it was one of the first times I thought to myself, wow, I thought I was a more outspoken advocate. Why do I feel so unheard and frustrated? And speaking to other teachers, they felt the same, especially with the reopening of schools. You even though we're all going back in the fall, I felt like the school board could have done a little bit more just to reach out to students and teachers and say, hey, what is it that you all think, and actually engage in a conversation with us rather than a simple yes or no survey question. But I know COVID was really hard on everyone, like I said, but I think just a little more effort really goes a long way. And I think I can really bring a lot of that one-on-one connection, especially with my involvement with the community. I grew up here. I just came out of the system. I, have been interacting with students and my peers for the past 13 years. So I think I'm able to just connect more and just talk to my peers a little bit more and just get that connection going, and I can bring that to the school board.
I wanted to be more involved in the community in some way. I've always been passionate about serving the community. I've been involved with several community volunteering events since I was in high school. I was involved with Campfire, Volunteer and Police Services, Gear Up, AVID, Knights of Justice, and Special Olympics. And I wanted to continue moving forward, building relationships and networking with the community in some way. And typically, like everybody else, I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I work 8 to 5, caring for my kids, and I want to provide the best tools and resources for them to further succeed in their life. And after all the scariness and uncertainty with the pandemic that we all experienced this last year, and currently what's going on with our school board, it gave me more of a motivation and push forward to run for school board to help make a difference for our kids and our educators.
So I'm running actually because I was appointed to the board in January 2020 to fill some earlier vacancies. So really my decision goes all the way back to about November of 2019 when I decided to run, because I've got 3 students in the district, and fairly young students, and I was growing concerned of sort of the quality of education they were receiving. It didn't feel as rigorous, the homework wasn't there, and so I just started having some concerns about, is this a quality education they're experiencing? Coupled with some of the scheduling issues were a little frustrating as a parent, days off that didn't make a lot of sense. So I'm a private practice attorney where my specialty is to the extent you have specialties, but my focus is representation of government agencies. So I have a background that understands government agencies, and so I kind of figured, well, an invested parent in the district and somebody who understands the fundamentals of government practice would probably be a good candidate for the school board. Coupled with, at that time when I put my name in, there had been a lot of unrest on the school board in general, a lot of open meeting violations and really silly things, and it seemed like the board was always in the paper for the wrong reasons. So, concerned parent, experienced with government agencies, I just felt like I could bring some balance, some perspective to the board, having some of those fundamental understandings. So that was originally why I put my name in and interviewed for the board vacancy. So now here we are. Because I was appointed, I have to run again, and it was an important experience the last year dealing with COVID. I think it was not a usual board year. So still the same reasons apply. I'm an invested parent in the district. I want to make sure that the parents' voice is represented. Some of the current board members either have students that graduated, so they may not see in real time what some of these decisions are doing, and so I think that's really important. So a lot of it is giving the voices to the parents and the taxpayers and whatnot, and really focusing on a quality education for our students in the district.
One of the biggest questions I think in everybody's mind is, what are your qualifications? What makes you, what experience makes you qualified? As a young person, like you just said, you just came out of this system, you just graduated, you're 18. What makes you want to run?
That's a question I've been getting a lot, which is totally valid. As a recent graduate, people are wondering, well, what makes you want to run? Well, or what qualifies you? And, I think besides the passion young people can bring to the table, this last year, as a senior, I had the opportunity to serve as one of the few student representatives on the strategic planning team, in which we took the board's priorities, values, and turned that not just into a vision, but into a promise. And we really individualized that and made it so, each student can get an opportunity, not just an opportunity, but that they have the tools and the resources to thrive in the same school district as everyone else. So I think just, those past 9 months, I also came to a realization that was the first time, in most of my public education experience, that I was actually offered a seat at the table with administrators, with community members, and with parents and other students. So it was really an honor to be one of the student representatives. So I want to bring that and allow that kind of opportunity to be offered to students who don't feel heard. So
yeah, and I believe that you are the only person of color in this race, for position 5.
Yes.
What does representation mean to you?
So, when people speak on diversity, we often commonly think, race, ethnicity, and gender, but I really think diversity goes beyond just those baseline things. I think diversity to me means we're going to include people from different age groups, from different socioeconomic backgrounds, from different religions, who have different sexual orientations, and, vary in perceptions, perspectives, and ideas and values as well. So to bring a representative voice that not only represents different backgrounds, but who also represents a large portion of the student body, I think that's not only important, but it's essential. If we're going to be representing and making decisions for students, for over thousands of students, we need someone on the board who's just witnessed, the inequities and the things in the system. And while I acknowledge we've had some great victories this year with COVID, we've had, more access to free lunch for everyone under the age of 18. Our school district worked really hard to provide equity to students and families who don't have internet access or access to technology. So I think we're stepping in the right direction, but if we truly are striving to be more diverse and inclusive, then we need to elect someone who knows what it's like to be in the public education system. Recently.
What experience and qualifications are you bringing to the table?
Well, I explained my community involvement just prior, but also I graduated from Wenatchee High School in 2008. I went to Wenatchee Valley College, graduated there in 2016. I finished my bachelor's degree online this last year through Purdue University. So I graduated with a degree in criminal law and justice with an emphasis of juvenile justice and behavior. And I currently work for Chelan County Superior Court, and my prior work was Chelan County Juvenile Detention. So my experience involvement with the community in serving parents and kids and advocates helps me become more qualified, I believe, for the position.
And also working with kids who are at more of the fringes of society.
Yes, a lot of children who are at risk, and not just on a lower socioeconomic standard, but you see kids from the total opposite spectrum too that do need assistance and help in some way. So it comes from a whole variety of a background.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been private practice attorney for 15 years, living in the Valley for the same amount of time. So my practice focuses on representation of government entities. So I really understand all the open meetings requirement, government agency budgeting, really the roles and responsibilities of the board vis-a-vis the administration. And I think that's always a fundamental misconception with folks who run for elected office. They think they're going to make all these powerful day-to-day changes, and it's really not that simple. It's not really your role. So it's really who you entrust to make those day-to-day changes. And so those are things I understand just from my background as an attorney. I'm also involved in other nonprofits in the Valley focused on opportunities for youth. I'm on the YMCA Board of Directors. I'm on the Arena Youth Enrichment Fund Board and the Wenatchee Valley Youth Sports Council, or Foundation now, we changed to the name. And I've been doing those for a while, and those are all boards that are directly related to providing opportunities for students and for children. A lot of it related to sports, but just in general, providing scholarships and things to get really underprivileged kids out doing activities and supporting them in any way we can. So between my professional, my background, my kids in the district, and then these other nonprofits I work on, I feel like I've got a good background and qualification for serving on the board.
All right, well, that was a lot of important information if you want to be an informed voter. And if you don't want to be an informed voter, you probably wouldn't have stayed with me this far. So let's take a break and we'll be back with more.
Flooring is the foundation of decorating. It sets the tone for your home and reflects your lifestyle. At Apple Valley Floors to Go, their goal is to help you make that choice a great experience. You'll find extensive flooring options at their beautiful East Wenatchee showroom. Engineered hardwoods, laminates, vinyl planks, carpeting. Do it yourself or have their professional installation team do the work for you. Family owned and operated in East Wenatchee.
At D.A. Davidson in Wenatchee, they believe your investment success begins with a personalized plan. A plan that is the roadmap you need to navigate your way to living your best years in retirement. D.A. Davidson can help you create a plan so you can take the time to enjoy the finer things in life. Let the financial advisors at D.A. Davidson help chart your retirement future today.
Introducing Alpine Airman. Because every home needs a superhero to eliminate poor indoor air quality, send inefficient operating equipment packing, and cut high energy bills down to size. For heating or cooling and equipment replacement, turn to the experts and the superheroes at Carrier and Alpine Air. We offer the best deals on high-efficiency Carrier products, along with friendly, knowledgeable service and incredible savings to fit your budget.
Welcome back. Let's jump back into my in-depth interviews with all three Wenatchee School Board candidates running for position 5.
Biggest challenges facing our district going forward?
So, on the perspective of a student, one of the biggest problems that I've seen is a lot of miscommunication. And I can say that on behalf of parents too, because as we've seen, our valley's really divided right now on a lot of hot button issues, and I think we can easily unify all this energy, all this passion into the schools, into making our schools better for our students instead of trying to antagonize and polarize each other. So I think, you know, misinformation and miscommunication are big issues that is at the responsibility of the school board. So I think if, as a school board member, if I'm able to not only have an open door policy and just say, you know, everyone is welcome, everyone can come to me, you know, and come see what we're doing, I will be willing to go to them. I think it really is up to the school board members to go not just participate in the community, but be a part of the community and really step in the shoes of these parents who have concerns and invite them in and say how this is the problem, get to the root of the problem, and then not only validate everything that they may be feeling, but invite them to be a part of the solution. If you see a problem, then I invite you to please unite with each other and let's find a solution for any concerns you may have.
What do you believe are some of the biggest challenges right now facing our district?
I think some of the biggest challenges is providing equitable resources for all students, addressing the student to teacher ratio, classroom sizes, and finding a middle ground, what's going to be more profitable for students to get a well-balanced education when there's only one teacher to 30 students, and then addressing providing the equal internet access, because if we continue with WIA, we need to continue providing the hotspots and Wi-Fi resources for families that can't afford it, because it does get expensive, and so we need to make that available for everybody is one of the bigger issues going about.
What are the biggest challenges you think are facing our district currently?
It's hard to say. First and foremost, the challenge is just getting kids back to school. There's been some discrepancies on what that looks like. Another big challenge is, we've done some work on a strategic plan. It's the academics, the focus on academics, the ability to make it the equitable access to quality education and really improving the education without having to simplify it, but making sure we're offering a quality program. Our learning rates, or our student learning, was trending down even before COVID. So now coming up with a strong plan to not only recover but to bolster is going to be a really critical issue in the next year. Coupled with all the new state laws and changes. We've got a lot of issues to tackle in the next couple years, and I know right before COVID hit, we were looking at facilities. We've been lagging on our facilities, so there's the potential for a bond in the future. But to do that, we really need to establish some voter trust again, which I feel like COVID didn't help us with a lot of that. So that's going to be another significant issue facing the district going forward.
If elected, what are some of your goals?
Like I was kind of mentioning, not just inviting people in, but really solidifying the partnerships that are already starting to form. There's a lot of community organizations that are offering free tutoring and just access to many other free opportunities. So if we're able to connect the businesses and the organizations of Wenatchee on a common goal to just help our students, I think we're really going to be able to get the best outcome in our district, because when students thrive, the community thrives.
If elected, what are some of your goals?
I hope to rebuild the gap with everybody, rebuild the connection with educators and parents and students and having everything be transparent with all the information, so there's no misleading information, and so everyone can be on the same page with everything. I want our students, our educators, and our parents to help rebuild the school district's mission statement for an inclusive and diverse community.
If reelected, or if retained, I suppose, what are some of your goals?
So really my goals are to work really collaboratively with the board, on things like implementing our strategic plan. We've got some good framework. We haven't fully adopted it yet. We're working on putting the milestones together, adding the meat to some of it. So finishing that work. Really, I want to see more or improved communication and transparency between the board, the administration, and our taxpayers, parents, everyone. That's going to be a real focus. It's something we learned in COVID. I probably listened more to some of the parents and constituents than others, and really was asking the questions, why can't we do this? Why can't we, I think that's our role as representing the taxpayers to do that. And so I think there was a feeling that they were left out of a lot of conversations. From the board's perspective, I feel like there were times where we were left out of important decisions, conversations. So it's really going to be, focusing on establishing the roles and responsibilities, making sure that we are in the loop on important decisions, and that the feedback loop is working so that there's clear planning, implementation, and parents, board, everybody knows what's happening versus kind of playing catch up or just not really having any idea. Yeah. So I think that was a big lesson we learned from COVID, was that we just need to have better feedback loops, transparency, clear plans, following through on the clear plans and policies, and doing what we say we're going to do.
I think that it's interesting just listening to the rumor mill of Wenatchee and the rumblings, because I feel like there are people maybe on the left where, folks on the left for so long since the Trump era began have been saying, run for something, and here a young woman comes along like yourself and you're running for something, and people are saying, oh, well, why is she doing that? Why is she doing that? And it seems to me like the more, this is democracy in action, and the more varied the voices that we have in the race, like even if candidates don't make it past the primary or you don't win that seat, just you existing in this race opens up all sorts of different topics that you can speak on with authenticity and personal experience.
Yes.
That maybe other candidates can't. So
absolutely.
That's valuable for our entire community, just you running. So kudos to you on that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Really, that's what I'm about, is the more the merrier, even if it's people you disagree with.
One of my favorite quotes of all time, which was spoken by local legend Earl Tilley on this very program, goes like this: "You can disagree without being disagreeable." And it's in that spirit of the quote that I went about producing this episode. These are three candidates with pretty different ideas about how we should run our school district. And that's a good thing. Like I told Arlette, I believe that having a young person and a recent Wenatchee High School grad in the race broadens the discussion and forces candidates to consider the perspectives of young people. Even if she doesn't make it past the primary, she has succeeded in no small way by making people listen to her perspective. And that's what makes this race one of the most interesting, in my opinion. See, after Trump won in 2016, there was a lot of liberal national rhetoric urging folks to run for anything, run for everything. If you were upset about Trump winning the presidency, run for something. Women, especially women of color, were encouraged to run for Congress, state legislatures, city councils, and school boards. Now there's a young woman of color running for something, and she's not getting much support from those same liberals who urged people to just run for something. But now the shoe is on the other foot when it comes to national politics animating local elections. Trump lost in 2020, and now it's the right that's energized, angry, and ready to organize and focused on more attainable goals than staging failed coups in our nation's capital. And that's where you and me and our school board come into play. If you can't win a national election, go for the school board using divisive trigger words like race and sex. Even some local church leaders are feeling the need to weigh in on subjects like critical race theory, instructing their flock from the pulpit, or whatever the hipster megachurch equivalent of a pulpit is, about this issue, even though it's not a part of any curriculum being taught in Wenatchee schools. It makes you wonder why some local faith leaders who weren't too concerned about COVID-19 or public health guidelines during a pandemic, plus folks who are brand new to our community with little to no experience in public service thus far, are all of a sudden begging to be elected to make decisions for our school district and our kids. It also makes you wonder if these churches are going to weigh in on political issues and tell people what to think about politics and how to vote in local elections. Should they be tax exempt? We'll have to examine that question at greater length in future episodes. Next week, we'll pick up right where we left off and ask these candidates about issues that actually matter to Wenatchee families, regardless of what this guy, and this guy think. Join me next time for more Common Sense.
In a world afraid of technology, one man, one show. We'll bring you the newest innovations that may just change your life. This summer, Ray McNeil, and your Weekly Tech Update is your Weekly Tech Update with Ray McNeil.